I think of a man, and I question his reason and accountability. That's what we're doing on this episode of Moonlight Kingdom Podcast 69 in 3, 2, 1.
Stirring version of this question. How you doing, man?
Good, and you?
I'm here, man. Chilling, having the conversation, doing the thing.
Well, that's
getting a fucking restriction on my life because I have a nicotine problem.
Well, at the end of the day, aren't we all doing the thing? Shit, people get props just for saying the thing. You know how many movies someone has been to where people got excited because, oh, he said the thing. Anyway, topic at hand. Why do you think men don't avoid accountability? Is it you asking a specific case of why I personally think I don't avoid accountability, or is it a men in general type thing?
So you can answer it in both ways, mind you. If we look at kind of like, even if you scroll back earlier on some of the comments, it's, someone has to take accountability, and we all know women won't do it. So to some degree, you're avoiding answering a reflective question about why you think you're exempt from avoiding accountability. Does that make sense? And we see this rhetoric all the damn time.
Okay.
So it's, if you want to answer it, it's like, why do you think you don't? And then why do you think men think they don't?
Okay, start specific and go broad. All right. On a
Sure.
more personal level, why do I think I don't avoid accountability? Because, well, I've just, on a personal level, I've seen what happens to, like, those people who do. They're not, when people tend to avoid accountability, it leaves them totally unprepared for when it comes. And I don't want that to be me. That's my own personal reason, because I've seen dozens of people, whether they be like a rich kid or a guy working in an office or just whoever, someone who's in a position where they've done something and the time has come for them to be held accountable for it.
Consequences to arrive.
Consequences have arrived, and they managed to dodge it. And instead, rather than taking that accountability, they manage to dodge it, and they think everything's cool. But eventually, you're going to get caught one way or another, and you're wholly unprepared. You have no idea what it's like to hold yourself responsible or be held responsible, and it feels way worse. So,
yeah. What do you think is a good example of that?
A good example being, there have been, it's like whenever someone gets caught in a lie, for instance, there will be that moment of, if you had just been honest from the start, this would have been a lot easier. Yeah, this would have been a lot easier to deal with, as opposed to stacking a lie and letting it grow and grow until it becomes like the initial thing you were lying about suddenly doesn't look that bad. But because you didn't want to admit it and you lied even further, it got a lot worse. Now the consequences bigger than you thought it could be.
Right.
Yeah.
Good example. Yeah, I agree.
So that's my specific reason. But on the more broad sense of why men in general would avoid accountability, it relates back to something you said earlier about like what it means to be a man. We all have different definitions of what that term "be a man" actually equates to. Because I remember, I think last year I asked that same question. Like, asked on TikTok, what does it mean to be a man? What does that phrase actually mean? So many people from so many different backgrounds each had their own different definition. But one thing that kept coming up is like the ability to provide and your ability to be responsible for like the people in your life and also your own actions. So when it comes to not dodging accountability, it's something that even though we're all different people from walks of life, there are certain men who can say owning up to your shit, that is a big part in being a man, and that's why a lot of men do that. Not
Mm-hmm.
not to a visible degree, but the behind the scenes, more or less. There are a lot of people who we don't see every day who do own up when they make a mistake.
Right. No, I agree. When it comes to like the conversation of like, how do I say it? Full. When it comes to the conversation of accountability, do you think that oftentimes men get confused with responsibility or consequence when it comes to this conversation? Like I'm a firm believer that nobody can avoid consequences. Consequences are a natural thing that happen depending on how you interact with the environment.
Yeah, I view it. It's easy to get them confused, primarily because people equate consequence with something bad. So when you
Sure.
like a man having a child, you'd say you are now a father. You have a responsibility to raise that child. But to put it in the frame of accountability, it's this thing of, yeah, you like in having that child, it's framed like you fucked up. Now fix it.
Right.
That's how it can be viewed in that way. So yeah, I do see it
I
what you're
mean,
trying
but
to
to
say.
some degree, depending on how young you are and just how psychotic the bitch you got pregnant is, yeah, no, it's suck it up, Buttercup. You have a kid with this one. Best of luck to you. And then society genuinely is that cruel, not only to men but also to women.
Yeah, there is this general attitude, especially in a lot of the crowd that is very anti-abortion. It says, well, nobody forced you to get with this man. Now you have a baby. You gotta, basically man up and raise it. There's no getting rid of
Right.
this. I can see why they would think that way, but that's a negative view to have because it frames this unborn child as this is the consequences of your actions. This child is now your penance that you must pay, or some kind of thing like that. And that's a negative view. That's just a negative. You don't want someone looking at a kid as like,
In a negative light.
yeah, you don't want them seeing it in a negative life. Like, damn, I had a life, and then this kid showed up.
Now, I have a question regarding that topic of conversation. Do you not think that there is some truth to that, though? You were, say, take the hypothetical, you're 19, 20, you're living life irresponsibly, clearly, because you ended up popping out a kid with a chick from a one-night stand, and now you're caught playing child support, and you're not even at the drinking age, right? There is some truth to that, though. I don't have that independent, single, do whatever the fuck I want to do life. My life can no longer function from a selfish standpoint, and I still had more selfish desires I wanted to get out. Now, whether you grow out of that feeling of resentment, if you feel resentful or not, is besides the question, or besides the point, I should say. But there is some truth to there is a strong shift that takes place when you do have a child. There's a large part of your life that you do relinquish, assuming you want to be a present figure in the kid's life.
Yeah, that is. A lot of parents go through that, but the average parent is, at very least, when they do have a kid, they're in a place where it's like, I've gotten all the singular individual desires I have out of my system. I am now ready to devote my life to someone else and have a kid. That's the average consensus. But in the hypothetical that you bring, where it's like a 19-year-old, so it essentially forces you to grow up. You're in a
Right.
situation where you have to become an adult now. your life is now on hold for at least 18 years because your life doesn't
Or
belong to
something
you
to that
anymore.
degree.
Yeah, to that
Exactly.
degree.
Yeah. I could get into the whole abortion conversation. I really could. Goodness.
Yeah, it's personally not a conversation I want to have. I mean, I'm not.
Neither is it a conversation that I want to have because people just start foaming at the mouth and I don't understand why.
Yeah, on a personal level, on my side, it's mainly because I'm a dude. I'm not the one having the kid. So, not that I fully believe the dude in the relationship, the father of the child, should, at the very least, is owed a heads
The
up in that department, as at the very least owed a heads up.
So I, having been in that position, right? Um, when I had recently gotten out of a very, very abusive relationship that I chose to stay in and I chose to be the Lulu about, right? Hence why I stayed in it. When I got out of that, I had discovered, my circumstance. And I was like, I'm just gonna call it a day. And I did. When I met my now husband, we had a pregnancy scare. And prior to that pregnancy scare, we had had a conversation. He's like, at the very least, will you let me know? And I was like, sure, okay. Had the pregnancy scare, let him know. And it really was just a pregnancy scare. Like, there was nothing going on. Bad test. Ladies, don't get the digital. Men, advise your ladies, do not get the digital tests because they are faulty. Even the Dollar Tree tests are more accurate than the digital tests, and that's depressing. So,
Good old force majeure. Anyway,
for
you were
real.
saying?
But I lost my train of thought.
You gave
What were we
the man
talking
a
about?
heads up on account of you had
Right.
a pregnancy scare.
Right, we're talking about men's involvement in whatchamacallit, in the conversation of abortion. Personally, I believe that should be a decent conversation. And honestly, I think that should be a conversation that happens prior to even y'all laying down and fucking doing, the horizontal tango, checkers, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And just because at that point, if someone wants a baby and someone doesn't want a baby, all right, we're not compatible in that regard because I want more children, or I want children. Well, I don't want children. Okay. If that conversation hasn't been had and you find out you're pregnant, I think it is important to involve men in the conversation of should you or should you not? Because to some degree, yeah, you're carrying it, but you didn't make it alone, homegirl. My 2 cents.
Yeah.
There, I fixed the question for all of y'all. So you can read it okay. I made a complicated question. That's on me. I simplified it. For the 4th grade reading levels that drink and drive out there. Goodness.
I thought it was 6th grade.
It depends. Depends on where you're asking for and depends on who you're talking to. Israf.
Sad truth of it all. But
anything else you want to add to the topic?
Yeah. Earlier,
It was a double negative.
Yeah, earlier I made the statement that men are quicker to hold accountable than women in certain cases. It's not in those cases it's not necessarily easier to do so, but it does happen quicker in that sense because not into such an extreme degree as in terms of oh, you had a kid with somebody, you need to fix this, but like even with small things, like hey, you fucked up here, you need to accept consequences. it's quicker to hold a man accountable because that sense of escalation from, okay, we're just talking, to do this or else, it's quicker to
Mm-hmm.
happen. Men are way less likely to operate with the same kid's gloves that they do with women that they do with other men.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I will say is I don't think that men accept it or have accountability forced onto them. I do think, however, that men have a harder time avoiding consequences by comparison of women. Women are solid at weaponizing their emotions to get out of a situation. If a man starts weaponizing his emotion, people look at him like he's a fucking moron. Chat, do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, it falls into that trope of, oh, boys don't cry. Like, you're, as a man, women are given a lot more leeway to express and just feel what they feel, but with men, there's a level of stoicism that is expected of you.
Sure, there is a level of composure.
Yeah.
I think most men suck at following stoic doctrines, because most men are reacting from an emotional standpoint. And maybe it's not to the same degree as receiving the information from an emotional based place, but I do think it comes from the point, like, when you are finding yourself irritated, most men tend to become more outwardly explosive. Reacting out of anger is an emotional reaction. You know, saying things that you might not want to say on a standard level and putting yourself in the hole is an emotional reaction, right? You say some fucked up shit and now you're looking like the asshole and you're getting more pissed because it's like, no, that's not what I meant. Fuck, stop looking at me like the asshole. So, I mean, I think part of it, likewise, is men are expected to have more composure.
Yeah.
And less so expected to be stoic. But when a man breaks his composure and becomes angry and explosive, likewise, that's okay, because it's societally acceptable.
Yeah. But
or it's more forgiven than when a woman does it.
It is, because when a man get just the pressure builds and builds, and then finally the dude decides to explode, there's this like thing like, oh, okay, you've lost it. You're not behaving how you're supposed to behave right now. On the flip
Right.
side of things, when a woman is emotionally put under pressure and can't take it anymore, there is this feeling of like, you know, hey, it's okay. It's totally normal for you to feel this way. There's a higher level of understanding on that side.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's also, like, weaponized tears are a very, very strong defense mechanism that women will do, especially to get out of fights.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you ever, or to any of the guys down below, how many times have you ever, you know, in a discussion or in an uncomfortable conversation or in a full-blown argument, let's not go into fight, but you guys are in a full-blown argument, voices are getting raised, you have a valid point to be pissed off, and then homegirl starts crying, and then you're like, why the fuck are you crying? Oh, you yelled at me, and like, I don't understand why you're yelling. Weaponized tears, and then the whole argument gets derailed, and somehow she makes you out to be the asshole for yelling at her, even though you were talking to her very clearly, like, I don't appreciate this type of behavior, or you saying this shit, like, what the fuck? That's a really good way for women to avoid accountability and completely dodge taking responsibility for what they've done.
Absolutely, because it immediately frames you as the antagonist.
Exactly.
You're maintaining the same level of emotion that you were at from the beginning, But the moment the woman in the conversation starts crying, it sort of frames you as you are making her cry, you are making her upset, even if you have a point. Whatever it is, it
Exactly.
doesn't matter now. Yeah.
And now your point's irrelevant because, well, now you feel like the asshole and she's calling you an asshole, and now you are the asshole. And then so many moons later, you're like, fuck, I'm still pissed. And now
Yeah.
resentment's starting to build.
Because the issue was never resolved. The conversation just ended with those tears. The issue just left, it just stayed with you.
Right. Anything else you have to say to this point, to this piece? Or do you think you've landed your point?
Nah, I'd say I landed a good point, but
I think you did.
yeah. Anyway, you keep up the good work. It was nice talking to you. Have the
I'm
day you
trying.
deserve.
I'm trying. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Remember to get your caffeine and your water in. Be safe. Be breezy. Don't get too hot. This heat wave's coming in strong to the end of this week and to next week. So best of luck to you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Yo, there you damn right, Moonlight citizens. Y'all heard that conversation. That's what it sounds like when two adults just sit down and well, they talk. They talk about a given topic. And they just give each other's opinions and thoughts on a given topic without, interrupting, no yelling, no unnecessary like raising of volumes, no ad homs or any of that crap. None of that. Just two people coming together to have a discussion. I'm going to say my piece on the matter. You're going to say your piece on the matter. Neither of one of us is trying to convince the other of anything. It's just a case of here's what I think. What do you? And then it's here's what you think. And that's the end of that. It's yeah. The host prompted a question, presented a question for people to answer. I came up, I gave here's my answer, and I explained why I felt that way. The host felt why they felt that way on the given topic, and we went from there. We were both respectful of one another. We both listened to each other's points. We didn't try to cut each other off. There was no muting. Like I've been in live streams where the host has thing is you can't call your live stream a debate space if there's no debate. Okay, because the average debate, the host of the debate, the person you're debating with, does not have access to a mute button. They can't make you shut the fuck up while they get their point across unabated. When it's time for you to give your point, they quick to stop you and say, actually, or what? Hold on a minute. Let me say this about what you just said. It's like, no, it's this thing of, I've seen plenty of debate spaces on TikTok where it's a case of rules for thee and not for me. The rules that the host puts up on the panel on how you can, not on the panel, how they put up near that topic on how you can interact are hinging, are only applicable to you, not them. Like normally when the host tells you no interrupting, no yelling, and you got to provide sources, more often than not, those rules only apply to you. You can't interrupt, but they can interrupt you just fine. A fair debate on a space like this would be if we both had access to mute buttons, or it's a case of this person is making that point, let me mute myself, or something like that. And yeah, you can get things with a debate, like a public debate, two people on either side talking to each other on microphones, and you can't drop somebody. You can't drop somebody. You have to hear their point out. And in those kind of public debates and shit, proper debates on the news and stuff, or in discussion programs, you have to hear the other person out. You can turn somebody's mic off, but they only really turn off somebody's microphone when that person is being disruptive or interrupting the other person or yelling their point across, or providing unsubstantiated statements. Yeah, in those spaces, it does make sense that you need to provide. So it does make sense that someone has access to a mute button. But both people in that debate space don't have control over the other person's mute button. A mediator does, a neutral party. So yeah, but on a TikTok space, the host is in charge of that, as are the actual moderators. So the proper way to do things, in my opinion, when it comes to those situations, would be to have the host and the guest be the ones talking and have the moderator
be the one controlling the mute button and all that. So that's just my 2 cents on it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope to have more conversations like it in the future, and have more podcast episodes skewing like this. But you know, it is what it is. I take them where I can get them. If I was down to just talk to myself like I am doing now, I could have a podcast episode every day. But I tried that in the past and it didn't work out. In fact, I almost drove myself crazy doing that, because if you just talk to yourself and trying to, I don't know, trying to be charming and entertaining and all that all by yourself, it starts getting to you after a while. Not to mention you start hating the sound of your own voice. So yeah, I'm gonna be you ain't gonna be hearing this what I'm doing right now. This is a wrap up. This is just, I did this because I enjoyed this conversation so much and I want it to be known. Also, just wanted to talk to you. Hey, if you stayed this far, if you listened this long, then and you're still here, hey, thank you. Thanks a lot for listening this long. I appreciate you on the 69th episode of Moonlight Kingdom Podcast. I appreciate you. I thank you for sticking with us this long. Appreciate all the likes, all the hell. I even appreciate all the comments, even the nasty ones. You cared enough about this show to say something about it, even if the thing you cared enough to say was to tell me to go fuck myself. Or that one guy who was like, hey, all you guys do is review movies that are old. Y'all are talking about movies from 5 years ago, because apparently movies that came out 5 years ago are old now? When I read that, I thought it said, like, you review old movies and shit. Like, you meant like, oh, you must mean I reviewed movies from like the 2000s or the 90s. No, I'm talking about a movie that came out in like 2021. He said like, oh, y'all talk about old movies. Like, whatever, man. Whatever. If you care enough to comment something, go ahead, man. Comment something. Let me know what you think about the show. Let me know what you think about the podcast. Let me know what you think about the gaming clips, or whatever. Just let me know what you think. I'm willing to take feedback and constructive criticism. Keep in mind, I said constructive criticism, not just criticism. If you're gonna leave criticism, make it constructive. Don't just point out what you think is going wrong. Point out how you can fix it. That's constructive criticism. As always, folks, yeah. This has been another episode of your Moonlight Kingdom Podcast, episode 69. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all them nice things. I've been your host, the Moonlight King, the man on the moon. I'm out of here.